What's up, guys? So, I have a lot of articles written about me on the internet, so I figured we would do something a little bit different on the channel today, and I would react to some of these articles. The first article is from mangaforever.com, Goku directly inspired by Superman. And this is, of course, in reference to a tweet that I made essentially explaining what Toriyama does with Goku as a character, because a lot of people just assume that he is just this, like, complete Superman ripoff, and that couldn't be further from the truth. But let's go ahead and just read this article and just see what it says. So it says, Dragon Ball is one of the most loved and famous shonen manga ever, and Goku, the main protagonist, is a true icon. Millions of fans around the world know the events related to the Saiyan who arrived on Earth, and with this article, we want to explore an aspect related to his origin. To be more precise, we want to understand if Toriyama drew Goku directly from Superman. This clarification is possible thanks to the support of the insider Jordan Lee Durham, who spoke about this aspect on his Twitter page. Here are the contents. Basically, this is just a tweet where I explained that Toriyama didn't just take inspiration from Superman, he didn't just take inspiration from Bruce Lee, he didn't just take inspiration from Jackie Chan, he didn't just take inspiration from Star Wars, he took inspiration from all of it. And the way that he went about taking inspiration from all of it, due to the fact that Sun Wukong is such a popular character in media, and his story is so old and influential, a lot of different characters in media are influenced by Sun Wukong, even sometimes whether they realize it or not. He has that much of an impact on media and on literature. So what Toriyama does is he takes the character traits from Sun Wukong and he looks for characters who have those character traits in his favorite media, and then he essentially plays on that. So Goku is essentially that guy. He is the main character from all of Akira Toriyama's favorite media, and that includes Star Wars, Superman, Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan. He takes inspiration from all these characters and he puts them together. Namek is a great example of how he took from Star Wars. The Super Saiyan legend is very, very obviously referenced from the one who would bring balance to the Force from Star Wars. And of course, Goku's origin story is heavily influenced by not just Sun Wukong, but Superman, and it's a really cool melding of the two characters, the way he went about doing it. You can actually see firsthand here, like, just how much in common Superman and Sun Wukong have. Sun Wukong can fly, he's nearly invincible, he can lift things, and he predates Superman, and him and Superman have been being compared to each other for a long time. As a matter of fact, I did a whole video about this topic called The Hidden Connection Between Goku and Superman, so definitely go check that out. But the article makes it clear, like I said, that, you know, Toriyama never said directly that he took inspiration from Superman. It's just kind of obvious if you know anything about Superman and Goku. It's just obvious that he took inspiration from them. But it's very obvious if you're a fan of any of these other characters that he also takes an inspiration from them. And if you were writing fiction, if you were writing a story, you know, and you were heavily impacted by a bunch of different types of media, then you would take different aspects from all that media and mix it together to create your own thing. That's what most people do when they write stories. So that's a really interesting one. I enjoyed that. That was really cool. Now let's check out the next one. Dragon Ball Super, the meaning behind Goku's astral manifestation. Yeah, I'm going to do a whole video about this one.
The answers will be revealed.
Let's go ahead and check out the article. So in Dragon Ball Super, Akira Toriyama and Toyotaro have included innovations related to the divine powers and techniques that even today, after 90 published chapters, have not yet been fully explained. Among these is the unique astral manifestation used by Goku, which seems to hide many more meanings than one would suspect. In the clash with the powerful sorcerer Moro, when the situation seemed desperate, Goku used the Ultra Instinct in a completely original way, generating a gigantic manifestation of himself to counter the opponent's power. A scene that was never repeated in the following chapters, which at the time of its release had left readers skeptical. However, it seems the energy resulting from this technique is somehow linked to the mythology behind the character that inspired Goku, Wukong from Journey to the West. It is in fact a play on words that starts directly from Wukong's name, which can be translated as descendant of the awareness of the void, but actually it's the monkey awakened to emptiness. And essentially they're referring to the fact that Goku awakens to Ultra Instinct. That's a direct play on, in the Granola arc, that's a direct play on Goku's name. But also, this whole concept, and I'm going to do a whole video about this, but essentially, the whole entire reason I even talked about this, funny enough, is because this avatar state for Superman was revealed, and I was essentially just explaining that the concept from Dragon Ball that Goku uses to achieve his avatar state is based around principles from martial arts that have been used and span tons of different media. As a matter of fact, I was just watching an old Street Fighter show from the 90s, and his master was explaining that the final technique in martial arts, the greatest achievement in martial arts, is the ability to use your chi as an extension of your body. And that this concept is ridiculously old. It's an ancient martial arts concept. And so I was basically just explaining that to people, and it sort of plays on the aspects of meditation and astral projection and what that has in common with Taoist and Buddhist teachings surrounding martial arts. Essentially, the idea is it's believed in martial arts that by achieving no-mindedness, you essentially take on the mindset of the universe itself and become an extension of it. And so, due to the fact that chi is an extension of the universe, you are essentially taking on the mindset of the universe, which is known as void, and you are acting through it, and it is acting through you. So the moves that you're using in combat whenever you're in this state are essentially godly, in the sense that it's like the universe itself is working through you. Chi itself, the source material of the entire universe, is working through you. And it's a very, very, very old concept in martial arts, and that's essentially what you're seeing here in Dragon Ball. They use it in all different types of martial arts media. Tons of people like to reference the fact that it's in Naruto. Sasuke summons the power of Susanoo, a Shinto Buddhist god, and uses it to his advantage in the form of a giant avatar state. So they do something very, very similar in Naruto, but this is based on concepts surrounding Taoist martial arts and Goku's name. Because Goku's name, the Ku part of Goku's name, means void. Goku's name is a synthesis of different terms, some Buddhist in nature and some Taoist in nature, and Dragon Ball really likes to play on that. And so this is a mixture of Taoist and Buddhist martial arts concepts within Dragon Ball. Goku is a character who has roots in both philosophies in the East, due to the fact that Sun Wukong has roots in both philosophies in the East. His first master was a Taoist immortal who taught him not just Taoist principles, but Buddhist principles as well. So Goku's character reflects a lot of that stuff. But anyway, yeah, so this article just seems to be about that. I'll make a whole video about that at some point, but let's just move on to the next article here. An often underestimated or little developed theme in Dragon Ball Super, or is the entire mythology of Akira Toriyama, is that of lighting. An apparently complex concept. This is translated from a different language, so that might not be what it says. The character of Zamasu had a rather important role in the story, since he indirectly dealt with the topic of human morality. Despite being defeated along with his ambitions of him, the villain himself mentioned the term enlightenment in the anime. But what exactly does this term refer to? For the uninitiated, enlightenment is the fifth and final stage of Budo, or the type of karate applied as a martial art rather than as a competitive sport. It is the final teaching that in the first place Master Roshi himself imparted onto Goku and Krillin, which consists of avoiding letting oneself be defeated by oneself. Yeah, it is therefore an even more profound thing, given that Grandfather Gohan was the first to insert this characteristic into Goku's mind, and that we see more clearly today through the form of Ultra Instinct. So this is essentially just pointing out that the term enlightenment within Dragon Ball is used within the context of martial arts, although it is also used in Dragon Ball Super within the context of actual enlightenment. As a matter of fact, the process that the Kais used to develop mortals is identical to the principles that Buddha used to develop Sun Wukong in Journey to the West. That's literally where they got that concept. Essentially the idea of like reincarnation, allowing beings to go through this process to where they develop on their own, and having mercy and consideration and compassion for them to allow them to develop. That whole entire concept comes from Journey to the West. So this is essentially just, I was pointing out on Twitter that Goku's enlightenment, although they do play on the classical sense of enlightenment in Dragon Ball, Goku's enlightenment is more framed around what they call enlightenment within the concept of Budo. So yeah, I'm glad that fans are catching on to that, because it's a very important thing. Budo is known as the martial way. Subhuti, Sun Wukong's master, taught Sun Wukong the way. So the martial way is Akira Toriyama's way of playing on the way from Journey to the West. And the way is just like, it's a Taoist concept. It's the Tao. But the idea is that Sun Wukong used the way to essentially become a Buddha or a god at will, which I just talked about in my video, The Secret of Super Saiyan Blue, so you can check that out. But essentially what that does is it allows him to be free of the laws of karma and samsara, so he can manipulate situations in his favor. And essentially, due to the fact that Dragon Ball only rewards practicing Budo correctly and taming the ego, and not allowing your ego to... The whole concept of not letting yourself be defeated by yourself is essentially not letting yourself be defeated by the decisions that you make that come from your ego. That is essentially what Roshi is trying to tell Goku, is not to be an ego-based martial artist. And being an ego-based character in Journey to the West is what causes you to have bad karma. The only reason that Sun Wukong didn't have to deal with that is not only was he a pure being in his own way, but he also learned from his master Subhuti how to prevent karma from affecting him. And Goku uses Budo to do the exact same thing. And that's the reason that Akira Toriyama chose to use the martial way, which is a modern Japanese concept, and use that to play on the way from Journey to the West and ancient Chinese Taoism, because that's what Goku uses to essentially manipulate fate and situations in his favor. So when Goku successfully practices martial arts and he tames his ego like he did against Frieza on Namek, that's essentially his way of making sure that he doesn't suffer from the same consequences that his ancestors, the Saiyans, or the many villains who use the Dragon Balls throughout Dragon Ball, it's his way of making sure that he doesn't suffer the same consequences. So I'm glad that the fans are catching on to that as well. That's really, really cool. But let's just move on to the next one. Dragon Ball, how the Saiyans perfectly embody the Sun Wukong of legend. Akira Toriyama has never hidden that he has taken inspiration from many works to build the story and the universe of Dragon Ball. Since the first tables of Son Goku have some distinctive features, such as the tail, very similar to the Sun Wukong of Journey to the West, which had so impressed the master, and which seems to share a lot with the Ferocious Saiyan. Yours truly underlined the many similarities in terms of the character between the Saiyan warrior and the protagonist of the famous Chinese literature novel. And essentially they just go on to quote some of the things I've said. It's essentially basically just pointing out that Goku's character development, everything that he goes through, is including the Saiyans themselves. Like the Saiyans, their character, their development as a species as a whole is based around Sun Wukong's character development. Sun Wukong tried to take over heaven. He was essentially like his own form of space pirate, but like in heaven. That's what Akira Toriyama uses, the Saiyans taking over things in space, as his way of playing on Sun Wukong taking over things in heaven. And so all of the Saiyans all represent Sun Wukong in that sense. They all go through the same character development that he does through Goku and through the Universe 6 Saiyans, etc., etc., etc. So the entire race is a manifestation of Sun Wukong as a concept, and that's basically what they're talking about here. And they also talk about how Goku is Goku, like Sun Wukong, is a representation of the heart of the Buddhist practitioner. That's why you'll notice that a lot of the concepts that they play on with Goku center around the heart, his pure heart, the fact that when his heart beats in battle, he evolves, or he becomes a great ape and his heart starts beating. Every concept, every transformation, everything around Goku is centered around the heart, because Sun Wukong was based on the heart. But yeah, I'm really happy to see that fans are starting to catch on to these things, because it really makes the series a much more enjoyable experience if you understand these things. But let's just move on to the next article. Alright, so Vegeta's Ultra Ego can be a reference to the first fight against Goku. Ah, yes, I actually remember when I made this tweet. So this is essentially me just pointing out that the scene in the Granola Saga, whenever Vegeta is hit by Granola, that is a direct reference to when Goku made Vegeta bleed for the first time in the Saiyan Saga. And, if you remember in the Granola Saga, Vegeta is standing in a great ape's footprint prior to becoming Ultra Ego. And I knew back when I read this back then that this was hinting at him having some sort of great ape transformation. And that's what Ultra Ego is for Vegeta. Because when they become a great ape, you always see the heartbeat sound effects. And like I said, Sun Wukong is a representation of the heart. But this is a play on what happened to Vegeta that day right before he went into his great ape form. And that's the reason that he goes into Ultra Ego afterwards, because Ultra Ego in itself is a reference to Vegeta's great ape form. That's the reason that the ego, Vegeta is like all ego, his thing about controlling his survival instincts or his Saiyan instincts with his mind. It's very, very appropriate for him, because if you remember back in the day whenever he became a great ape, he could speak through his great ape form. So it's very appropriate for him. But anyway, this is just a reference to the first fight between Goku and Vegeta, and this is essentially me just pointing that out, and pointing out that Ultra Ego is in fact a reference to the great ape state for Vegeta, which is pretty cool, because the great ape form is the destructive force of nature that the Saiyans would become to wipe out all these planets. So it's just a really cool concept. But yeah, I'm glad that they are calling attention to that, because that is a pretty cool reference there. Alright, we'll look at a couple more, because there's quite a few. But we'll look at a couple more. This next one is essentially just Masako Nozawa. I basically explained to some fans on Twitter that Nozawa has a great understanding of Goku's character. A lot of people don't have near the understanding of Goku's character she does. So this article is basically just, the shock amongst the fandom that Masako Nozawa would say these things about Goku, because these are the types of things that people argue about when it comes to Goku's character all the time. So I can see why this tweet took off. But I'll read Nozawa's words to you real quick, just because this is what spawned the article itself. So, Goku doesn't fight because he hates his opponents. If someone's doing bad stuff, then he'll fight to restore peace. But since his opponents are strong, he trains to hone his skills too. That's why Goku has no concept of enemies. Once the battle's over, everyone's a friend. I love that aspect of Goku. Even the likes of Piccolo and Vegeta have changed by Goku's touch. At first, I thought they were real jerks, but now I guess they're kind of my friends. And I guess she probably said that in the Goku voice, which is cool. And then the second thing she says, and this was after the Broly movie, they were asking if Goku changed after the Tournament of Power, and she says that Goku never changes, and I agree. By nature, Goku can't change, because his nature is what the plot paints as what makes him special and what makes him successful in the show. So I understand. Now, he does learn things. Goku learns things, but as far as changing by nature, the plot basically demands that Goku never changes by nature. And she goes on to say that he's always been the same. He's always going to be Goku. He wants one thing for the whole world. He just wants peace. He wants everyone to get along with each other, so when he encounters a villain or a bad guy, all he's trying to do is change the way they think a little bit and shift them towards good. So if in the middle of a fight, if a bad guy says, you know what, I changed my mind, I'm going to be a good guy now, he's going to stop fighting. He's not going to beat him up to a pulp to prove that he's better or stronger. He just wants peace. So she's essentially just pointing out he's not an ego-based fighter. And she also goes on to say that Goku never hates anyone. He doesn't even have the idea of vengeance. And all he's trying to do is say, hey, if you behave that way, you're going to cause trouble for people. You're disturbing people's lives. Don't do that. So it's basically just telling you that this is the way Goku thinks about all the enemies he faces. Like he doesn't necessarily hate them. He just wants to keep the peace. So when he wipes someone out, he's not doing it because he has personal feelings of hatred. He's not doing it for self-gratification. He's doing it to maintain the peace. And a lot of people disagree with this, and a lot of people will talk about how Goku tried to get revenge for Krillin, but actually, Goku never tried to get revenge for Krillin for himself. That's self-gratification. Goku did what he did for Krillin, and that entire arc is about testing Goku's pure intentions, and I'll probably do a whole video about that at some point. Goku is facing trials in that arc to test just how pure his intentions are at defeating King Piccolo, and that is the reason that he is successful in doing it, because he really just wants to do it to get vengeance for Krillin and everyone else and save the planet. And I'm really glad that they put this article out there, because this is something that I think a lot of fans could learn about Goku. He's consistently either using his Saiyan nature in survival situations to wipe someone out based on survival situations, or he's using his nature as an Earthling to push himself as a martial artist. And which one which mode he's in is very situational. For example, whenever Goku spares Moro in the Moro arc, that's him in Earthling mode. That's him when his heart is calm, his Saiyan nature isn't activated at all. But prior to Goku trying to have mercy on Moro, he also tried to wipe him out with one giant Kamehameha in blue and failed whenever he became Moro 73 because he was in a do or die survival situation. And that's how Goku maintains pure intentions. Whenever he's encouraging villains to practice martial arts, he's doing it with pure intentions, and whenever he kills someone, he's doing it with pure intentions for survival purposes. So, and that's a very important aspect of Goku's character, and that's what makes him the purest being in the universe, as Akira Toriyama has said. Anyway, this is the last article we're going to cover today. It says, Dragon Ball Super, a very specific legend could be hidden behind Beerus's gluttony. Oh, okay, yes. Dragon Ball Super introduced several new characters to Akira Toriyama's series. We have discovered entities even superior to the Kaioshin, and others that are closely related to them, such as the Gods of Destruction. So this is essentially just talking about a tweet I made, because believe it or not, if you Google Dragon Ball Infinity or Dragon Ball fan manga, you will likely run into my fan manga that I did that took off during the Dragon Ball Renaissance. There have been tons of videos made about this fan manga. It was way more successful than I ever could have imagined in my wildest dreams. And so the point of this tweet was to basically explain that in Egyptian culture, Set had cursed the Bubaste, which are a race of cat people, to be forever hungry for knowledge and for food, and they never gain any weight despite the fact that they are always hungry, and not only for knowledge but for food. So this is me just explaining that on Twitter, that could be the source for Beerus being skinny all the time, despite the fact that he's eating all the time. Of course, that doesn't explain Champa, but I do think that possibly could be where Akira Toriyama took the inspiration for this. But I take inspiration from Egyptian mythology in my fan manga Dragon Ball Infinity, and it is about a character who is based on the Egyptian equivalent of Sun Wukong, because there is a monkey god in Egyptian mythology that is very, very, very similar to Sun Wukong, and he was the inspiration for this character. I essentially take Journey to the West and I mix it with Egyptian mythology to create my own story, because I am well versed in mythology and as a writer. So if you're interested in that, please go check it out. I'll leave a link for it. You can check it out on Webtoons, but you can also check it out on the DaoofDragonBall.com, and there is some bonus pages on that website for you if you're interested. If you haven't heard of Dragon Ball Infinity and you want to check it out, I would greatly appreciate it. And again, if you're a fan of Egyptian mythology and Journey to the West or Dragon Ball, you'll likely really like it. And when you're reading it, you can look for all the references to Journey to the West. You can look for all the references to Egyptian mythology and Dragon Ball, because there's tons of them, and that makes it a really fun ride. Yeah, feel free to check it out. Anyway, that's going to be the end of this video. If you want me to do more videos like this, please let me know. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.